Hey, welcome to the Christian Media Marketing Show. Thanks for joining me. My name is John, and on behalf of Kavanaugh Media, all of the teammates that I get the privilege of working with, thank you. Thank you for hanging out, listening to the podcast, or watching the YouTube channel. We are in the midst of a three-part series. This is the final one where we're looking at just AI and missions. Especially, there's been several books recently that I've been reading on it, but the one that really got me thinking through of this most recently is a book called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman. He is an expert at this because he has been there since the very beginning. He and his company, which was bought out by Google, they've been there. And so they are, I believe, uniquely equipped to look at AI, its benefits, its risk. And if you read the book, really, he's going to give right towards the end of it 10 steps of what he thinks needs to be happening right now to contain AI. So this is a guy that's been there since the very beginning, and yet his argument is that we need to think about containment. Because one of the things about anything that's out there that's new is that many times we get caught up on the bright, shiny new thing, and the negatives can be lost as a result of that. And I don't want to be a Luddite. I don't want to sit there and not believe that technology can play a part in what we're doing. But his book really just struck a chord with me when it comes through just what are we going to do with this coming wave? It's coming. And so, what are we going to do? And so, I want to just jump in here today and look at in episode 3 really just the idea of what is the future of AI, not from a technological standpoint, but in its relationship to missions and the work of the mission of the church. Now, Suleiman makes this comment, and I'm just going to quote him here directly. Let me read it here. Billions of hours of raw human life are consumed, shaped, distorted, and enriched by technology. They dominate our businesses and our leisure time. They occupy our minds and every crevice of our worlds, from fridges, timers, garage doors, and hearing aids to wind turbines. They form the very architecture of modern life. Our phones are the first thing we see in the morning and the last at night. Every aspect of human life is affected. They help us find love and new friends while turbocharging supply chains. They influence who gets elected and how and where our money is invested. Our children's self esteem, our music taste, our fashion, our food, and everything in between, Suleiman says. And I would say it impacts our faith as well. What we believe, what we see as true, and what others who do not yet know Jesus, what they will think of him and his kingdom. And so AI is going to play a part in missions. It's going to happen. And in fact, I believe it's going to be a bigger part of missions. I think it will play an increasingly important part of missions work. And some of the ways that I think that we're going to see this is just through AI driven apologetics, to be able to use the greatest minds of all the world combined together, forming these large language models, forming the greatest thought leaders of all time, and having those resources available so that even when a person asks a question, this AI driven apologetic will have the best answers for that specific person, that context, that language itself. I remember speaking with someone, and they were asking me a question about Plato's cave theory and the idea of two-dimensional, and they're inside the cave, and they're doing this in the other language, and I'm doing my best to just hang on there and provide some somewhat decent answers to them. This is where I see technology and specifically AI helping us find answers, helping us think through issues, helping us just in giving a defense for the gospel. Now, other religions and other people will be using these as well. And so this is where all groups, all people are going to be using these. The wave is coming. I think Bible studies themselves really tailoring very specific types of AI guided Bible studies, unique to the individual. They will know what you studied, they will know what you need to study more, they will give you suggested readings, they can help answer questions. All of this is exciting to help people grow in their understanding and the tailored messages for them. I think in the idea of follow up as well, whether that be in what we currently have with digital engagement with online responders or AI responders or a WhatsApp message, a Facebook message, some Telegram, Discord, you name it, wherever it is, what we have right now, yes, AI can play a part. But we don't even know yet what the coming technologies are going to be and in what ways. And yet I can see that AI will help in an automated seeker follow up type of system. The answers will be given, the right answers, and the more it does it, the more data that comes into the LLMs, the better that they will get at it. And this is always the reality with technology and specifically with AI. It will continue to get better and better. The more data, the more feedback, the better it's going to be. Another major area to me is going to be in the idea of machine translation and breaking down language barriers. And so, real time language processing, I think, is going to be an amazing thing, allowing people to not only hear, but to speak and be heard in other people's languages is an unbelievably powerful thing. Language is one of the things that has divided the world. When you go back to the Tower of Babel, that's how they were spread out. Because people did not go forth and to fill the earth, is the exact phrase there, and they settled instead, well, then God sent them out. Well, part of what is happening in our world as it gets more and more technologically capable is that it's getting smaller and smaller. So even as we go out, language can be overcome, the differences. But the great thing to this is the languages where there is no scripture, where there is no Christian influence yet, in those languages and those very specific ones, and they're still there. The ability to use machine translation from the president of a Bible translation group that I was on a panel with said this is going to take what would take years and it's going to move it down to months, maybe weeks. In fact, just the initial response from this machine learning type of AI driven translation, he said could be at 80% or better from the very first chance, the very first blush of doing this. So it's amazing what it I think it's going to be used. But as Solomon says, the coming wave launches immense centralizing and decentralizing riptides at the very same time. There are some risk, there are some opportunities that are coming. And so, how do we balance AI's power with the risk? And so, Solomon says that while technology is still the single most powerful avenue for addressing the challenges of the 21st century, we cannot ignore its downsides. While acknowledging the many benefits, we also must overcome pessimism aversion, and we need to take a cold, hard look at what new risk might arise from omni-use technologies. And that whole concept of omni-use technology is something that he talks about in the book, in his The Coming Wave book. So AI is a double-edged sword. And because of that, it can deepen faith or it can distort theological truths. How are we going to be able to make sure that we are using it while containing or eliminating as much as possible the risk. One of those risks is the rise of deep fake technology. In fact, I've got a podcast coming up here in a few weeks where the ability to take a person's face and to change their face, to change their voice, to make it look, even on a webcam in real time, look like someone else is there. So it is amazing to me, the capabilities and its usage for evil, the usage for harm is just skyrocketing. In fact, that's what I spend most of my time with now, is in the realm of cybersecurity. We have a full team working in marketing, all of those things. So I've really been leaning in, working on certifications, reading, using, testing inside of a home lab, all of these different types of tools to combat this misuse. But AI itself is making things so much more believable and powerful. The days of emails of some prince in Nigeria leaving you money, yeah, those are gone. Nowadays, this is becoming very, very personalized spear phishing types of attacks. So we need to be careful of all of these things, as well as just misinformation itself. If you go in the book, he really lays it out. But this this decline of what is truth, the rise of misinformation and disinformation, and just the repeated over and over and over lies gets people believing it. When people don't do the work to go dig further and they just look at a sound bite or a little bit of text on X or wherever, and that's what they base their opinions on, it can be used for misinformation and for evil. And so we have to be careful of it. Finally, the area of this rise of AI that I think we have to be careful about is AI surveillance and religious persecution. And so the ability to use cameras now to identify people, police in China have glasses that'll enable them to do that. You can go into a completely packed out football stadium, and there are so many cameras that its ability to find someone who's being wanted is unbelievable. And that's our world. That's not just China. That's the world that we live in today. There are cameras everywhere. There are abilities to hear sound, the ability to match a voice, to voice match a person is in the high 90 percentile for them to be able to know with certainty this is that person. So AI surveillance is growing. And with that, to stop crime, great. But to persecute those who in certain countries are trying to share the hope of Jesus and to be persecuted, or even more for believers, local believers, who they're not leaving the country when the police pull them in. They're not getting kicked out of a country like many foreigners might be. This is an area in the area of AI surveillance and tracking and pattern matching that to me has me very concerned, the area of religious persecution. So we've got to be thinking about how can we protect seekers? How can mission teams and organizations protect seekers? So I think there's just a call to action. I think there's things that we need to be thinking through here, and just what can we do as stewards of AI for the kingdom. And so a couple things that I might recommend. This is I don't have all the answers. In fact, if anything, I just have far more questions than anything else. But here's a few things. I think we need to be creating frameworks for ethical AI usage. Frameworks in the world of cybersecurity are things that are set up so that you can go through them and really create an environment that is safe. So we go through this framework, we have things, it's maybe your cell phone or your computer or whatever it might be. It's guide rails. It's pre-thought out bumper guards, things to stop things from going too far one way or the other. And I think we need to have these frameworks set up for ethical AI usage. We need to be thinking through the ethics as Christians. How are we going to use and utilize AI? AI should augment, not replace, authentic discipleship and relationships. It should come alongside, but I do not believe that it should replace what you and I as humans are called to do, which is to be good news, to be disciple makers. I think, if anything, the AI we need to be leveraging is the ancient information, the Bible itself. Yes, we can use artificial intelligence and all of these things, but it's really important that we do not take our God given roles and then just give it up to AI. I think we need to be good stewards of these tools that are there. And I think that we need to really be thinking about, critically thinking, and using spiritual discernment in the world that we live in, this AI driven world. Our whole world is going to be driven. It's AI is already here and the wave is coming, even more usage of it. And so we need to think about that and what we as Christians are going to do. Suleiman says the coming wave launches immense centralizing and decentralizing riptides at the same time. Both will be in play at once. Every individual, every business, every church, every nonprofit, every nation will eventually have its own AI and ultimately its own bio and robotics capability. From a single individual on their sofa to the world's largest organizations, each AI will aim to achieve the goal of its owner. So says Solomon. So, with the AIs that we will have available, how do we ethically Christian use these tools that are available? The future of AI and of missions is still being written. It's being written right now. So, how will you and I use these technologies for the glory of God? That's going to be the biggest question. I think we need to be thoughtful, we need to be strategic, and we need to be faithful stewards of AI's potential. So, thanks for joining me in this series. Thank you for your questions. Several of you have reached out, told me you're reading the book or have read the book. I think it's important. We need to stay on top of this. So many times in the church, we learn things that everybody else in the business world and just the world in general already know or are using. We've got to get ahead and get to the tip of the spear and use it for God and for his kingdom. So thank you for listening to this podcast or watching the show. As always, click like, subscribe, all those things. You know the drill on that. But if this can be a benefit to somebody, I really do hope that you will tell them about this series, about this book, or about the podcast and YouTube channel as well. As always, thank you for all you do for the kingdom. Keep pressing forward for the renewal of all things to expedite the Lord's return. May we make him pleased with what we do, making his son known. Until next time, take care and God bless.